Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to our weekly Mandalorian reviews. Tonight is our review on Chapter 12, The Siege. And this one was actually directed by Carl Weathers himself. I believe he is currently on Twitter. If you say a positive thing about the episode, he might even retweet you out, so it's worth a try. And this is going to be completely spoiler-filled, as usual. If you've followed us before, if you've watched our reviews before, we go completely in-depth, analyze the whole episode, speculate, discuss it, everything in between, and there will be no change to this week. We're going to do exactly the same thing. So there is actually quite a lot to dissect in this episode. We were actually having this debate before we went live. We've heard that some people think this is a filler episode. I don't actually know what the general consensus is on this episode. I've heard on the grapevine that there's been some negative criticism towards it. Maybe that's due to a certain character who's reintroduced into this, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and sort of like personal tweets that are going out and opinions. We'll go all into that. But I actually really like this episode. In fact, right off the bat, this may be one of the strongest episodes in the series for me. But before we get into that, we'll get the socials out of the way first, and then we'll dive deep right into the episode.
Absolutely, guys. So as usual, we want you to comment along with us. We're doing spoilers if you've watched it already today. If you've got your thoughts, you want questions, we've got answers. We're going to already shout out a couple of people when we get to plot points because I've already put ideas in my head. But as Chris said, this was quite an episode. I think this is going to be one of those speculation-heavy Star Wars episodes, which we're very excited about because it's been a very interesting season so far. And we're at the halfway point as well, which is really important. But as usual, we want you guys to help us to be like, comment, share, and subscribe. I had a couple of shout-outs today. I've seen people putting stuff in Facebook groups. I really do appreciate that. As I said, we have a lot of fun talking this with you. We bring up your comments, so do comment along with us. And if you want to find out when we're next doing our videos, the best way usually is Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter, @cinema_savvy. And a very quick shout-out, as this is the Carl Weathers episode, we're also currently reviewing all the Rocky films. And unintentional timing, the Rocky 4 review is this Tuesday coming up. So if you like Carl Weathers, if Carl Weathers is even watching this, if you know he's on Twitter, we're reviewing Rocky 4 this Tuesday. We look forward to it. However, that being said, it is time to talk Chapter 12, The Siege. Immediately, the moment the word The Siege came up, all I could think of is the Alan Partridge film and the opera siege at Tenet, which we'll get into later. But it kind of came... So it wasn't spoiled for me. I'm off work this week, so normally I start work at 8. That's the moment it drops on Disney Plus. I just put on Do Not Disturb. I put my phone face down and I look at it after my lunch break when I've watched it. So this week was like woke up, turned on Twitter. It was like 10:30, but watched Mandalorian straight away. And I'd seen a couple of Carl Weathers tweets he tweeted in the middle of the night because obviously that's when it came out. People really, really nice with him and stuff. So I was kind of looking forward to it on the off chance. I know we'll get into the filler thing actually pretty quickly because I'm on the same page as you here. As far as director goes, this is the first director we knew was directing this episode. You know, Bryce Dallas Howard was the surprise of episode 3. Episode 2 was the big surprise with Peyton Reed. Carl Weathers already said, I'm doing episode 4. We know Filoni's on 5. So I had a bit of intrigue with this too, because I've never seen Carl Weathers direct a film. I did check out his credits earlier. He directs a lot of TV, nothing I'd seen, but as a supporting character that I really enjoyed his screen time last year, that I thought, oh my God, he's only in 2 episodes, and he came back at the end. I was really excited to get him back, mainly because in the promotionals for this, he had this incredible new cape / Count Dooku thing to connect him there, and I just kind of thought, Carl Weathers looks incredible as ever. And you find out he directed it, and you made a great comment to me last week saying that if he's directed it, then we do expect him to be front and center. And he was, and it was excellent. Just that's my initial thought. It was excellent. And the filler debate, I don't think it's filler. I think me and you are both on the same page. We'll get into it as we discuss it through tonight. But this elevates things. This moves things forwards. And it's something really interesting. And the consensus online from Twitter is very, very positive. So a lot of people loving it. And we will get to that person because it is the first episode of their return. We do try and keep politics out, no matter how many times I make the odd comment. But I think tonight's the night. We've all discussed this off air. You know, if we were going to do a Snyder Cut, we'd have to discuss that. But that would more be a rant like Mulan. If you haven't checked out Mulan,
that's next year.
We both boycott it, yeah. But no, let's talk Mandalorian. Initial thoughts. I don't even know where to start, do we? We kind of predicted this, right? We knew they were going back to Navarro.
Yeah, so I mean, going back to the trailers, I think mostly our predictions have been pretty on the money as we've gone through. I think we were a little bit trigger happy on the Waterside episode, weren't we? Last week's episode, we thought that was going to be episode 2. It turns out it was actually episode 3. But going from the trailer, I think even season 1 did this. They didn't really show any clips that could potentially spoil the entire ending of the series, and it looks like they've done exactly the same thing. As far as I know, I think now that episode 4 has wrapped with chapter 12 this time, I think they've pretty much gone through all the footage that was in the trailer. I don't think there's anything that we haven't seen from the trailer. So next week is going to be completely uncharted territory, and I think that's the best thing to do it. In your trailers, show your first 4 episodes. So going through all the footage on the checklist of the trailer, I was like, well, we're probably going to see Carl Weathers and Kara return in this one, which we did. We're going to have the speeder bike chase, which we did, and then the jetpack shot of him flying off the cliffside, and tick, 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 we got all of them. So I love this episode. I'd say this is a very action-packed episode, but that doesn't take away from the plot. I think this is a welcome return to what I wanted. This is furthering the plot to me. There's lots of things in there which we'll go through, which is not only just for this series, but just the Mandalorian as a whole, Star Wars as a whole, the entire universe, what it could possibly tie into, where it could go. And going back really quickly, what you mentioned there about Carl Weathers directing this episode, it is always that week to week. It's like, right, who's going to direct this one? And I didn't know if he had directed anything before this point. I was thinking that Star Wars, even though it's smaller scale on the TV with Mandalorian, even though some of the stuff they achieve, even in this episode, is like comparable to a film, in my opinion, with the action scenes, it's always that gamble. It's like, are they going to be able to rise to the challenge, rise to the occasion, essentially, of directing something set in this world, set in this IP? In terms of visuals and directing, I didn't think it really had the flair of Bryce Dallas Howard's and the camera work and everything. It did seem like a lot of it was just sort of shot in sort of like mid shots or long profiles. The action was filmed brilliantly, got nothing against the action. But it's what was contained in the episode. I don't think it really needed all of that flair. There were some cool moments, some nice bits of the action. But in terms of the actual filming, nothing completely blew me away. Whereas we should mention this actually, after we got done with our review last time, I think it was on Twitter, they did a side-by-side comparison of Apollo 13 with the opening shot that Bryce Dallas Howard directed. Obviously, her dad, Ron Howard, directed that film. So I don't think you quite had that cinematic feel to the episode, but you did with the action. So I don't know how much input Carl Weathers had in terms of the action side, or if he filmed more of the other stuff. I don't quite know how it's distributed or who works on what when it comes to these episodes.
Yeah, and this is really intriguing. So if anyone's in the gallery, phenomenal series on Disney Plus. They had a roundtable with the directors last season, and it was really cool because you basically had each director had their own footprint on the entire episode was theirs, but you always had Filoni was on set a lot to help them. Favreau, when he could be on set, was on set. Obviously, is making Lion King, so I'm really hopeful they're making a second season because me and you were the same. We both love behind the scenes stuff. I know I'm going to say this; you've heard it a million times. I've never seen the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes, but I know that's the pinnacle of behind the scenes sort of stuff. Whereas, like, seeing the gallery to me was up there with mine because it was 8 episodes, different things. And when you get a director roundtable, Hollywood Report do a lot of them, it's just really fun and it adds a vibe to it. And I would love to see Carl Weathers sat down with all these because I guess the difference is, although Taika obviously started as IG-11, that was voice work more so than performance. And I would love to see how Carl Weathers approached it as someone that's in it to also being directing it as well. So that was really intriguing. But as you said, the Bryce Dallas Howard thing was great because I did actually really hope for a Rocky reference today. Not just because we're watching them all every week, but when he came out of Celebration last year, he was doing the I want you, and it was incredible. That shouldn't be at a Star Wars convention for the reasons that it's just so great. It deserves a bigger crowd than Star Wars fans. But it was. I don't know. There wasn't many references, which is great. I'm not moaning. I can't. It sounds like I'm moaning. I'm not. Like, I just adored it. I think because I'm on this Rocky hype, I'm just in this like Carl Weathers zone right now where I kind of want to go and watch Arrested Development or just some clips of it online. Like, I keep watching these Clubber Lang clips every day now. It just keeps coming up and recommended. Like, the YouTube tab. Like, what are you watching? It's just all Rocky. I know I'm way off point, but,
it knows, man. Those algorithms.
It's watching us. It's watching us. It knows what's coming next. But yeah, it was nice to get him back, and I think that's kind of crux of it. That this episode kicks off. They need to get the ship repaired, and we now have Marshall Dune. Is that what Marshall Car? Very weird to call it Marshall because we had that in episode 1. So
yeah,
that
no, I
me
thought that.
I'm not going to lie.
when they mentioned that, I was like, is Timothy Oliphant in this episode as well? And then it was like halfway through the episode, I realized that she'd become the marshal of this town. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it really was just a reunion of all these old characters, even more characters than I expected. We get the fish guy from the first scene of episode 1, season 1. I can never remember his name. I don't know if he's an SNL guy or whatever. It felt right. I think narratively, it's kind of weird that in episode 3, he says, like, where's Ahsoka Tano? And she says, you know, she's on this planet, go there now. And you expect the next episode to be at that planet to continue the narrative, but he would need to get his ship fixed, and he probably would need, you know, extra guns, or he would need to like touch base with people there. And I think at the halfway point, if we hadn't have reconnected with a lot of those older characters, I think with the time away from them since last series and not getting them till maybe episode 6, and then by that point you've only got your final few episodes, I think it would have been too little too late, and we wouldn't have had that time with them. So I think at the halfway point, nip it in the bud, reconnect with them. Next week, it might just be Mando on his own and Baby Yoda, and I think Ahsoka's probably going to take up the majority of that episode. Then we can reconnect with them in like episode 6 and get them in like the last 3 episodes. So it was really nice to see them all again. I think a few of the opening scenes, especially with Cara Dune, did feel in the grand scheme a little bit pointless. We sort of see her go into a room of Ponderbabas. I don't know what the name of their race is called, and just beat them all up. And there's this like weird like mongoose thing, like this little meerkat thing that she befriends, which weirdly enough, in the concept art, we see it breathing fire. Did you catch that in the concept art? I was like, I swear that wasn't in the episode.
I'm not gonna lie, I've not seen it since I got the thumbnail this morning. So the only concept art in my head are the 3 I sent to you.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah,
the concept art, I will see it again. I haven't seen. Normally, I watch it twice. I've only seen it once. I'm seeing it again tomorrow because I missed it tonight with my dad. So I've only got the one viewing for this so far.
Mm-hmm.
But bring off the Cara Dune
scenes. Yeah, it just felt like it was a good reintroduction, and it showcasing her talents as, you know, mixed martial artist. She's doing what she does best. It was just that reintroduction. That scene was solely there just to sort of go, remember this character, see what she can do.
Yeah, because it was weird. It's like, oh look, it's the Mando cave. I was expecting like vaporized Mando, and it was a pleasant surprise to a point. And I've got to bring in the words to a point, because we have to bring up the elephant in the room. I'm not going to sit here and this is me. That's fine. Obviously, 2020 has been a very bizarre year, to say bizarre, putting it politely, actually. Yeah, so rewind the clocks back a year, and here comes the Joker. I might speak some joking. We were all. Cara Dune's an interesting one, because a year ago, when they announced, it was like, oh my god, it's another strong female person, and people didn't like that, and it was fine. But it's like, but this is someone that's trained in MMA, that's been in action films, that's going to be a great addition to the Star Wars universe. And we loved her in it. And it was great. Never anything on social media. Absolutely wonderful. She was a celebration. Wonderful addition to the Star Wars. What a joy to behold. And then coronavirus came. And I'm not going to fully derive it, because I could be here for a while, and it takes us off point to discuss this episode. But there has been a very big traction, and it's spread from Twitter to actually other news sites now, which is when it normally picks up. So summed up, it first kind of happened with like being anti-masks, and everyone's like, oh, you know, please don't have that opinion. You're in a really high position of like social media followers. You represent your franchise really well. You know, please don't do anything. That was like June, and it all went quiet. And then we had the transphobic stuff. Now, hot off the heels of J.K. Rowling, you know, maybe one of the most, well, we'll discuss Johnny Depp when the time is right. Gina Carano came out, and basically it's very common on Twitter. I had to educate myself. People put pronouns. It's to basically be like anti-transphobic, that he, him, all the pronouns. I can't list them. I don't want to get it wrong. I'm going to apologize on the spot, but it was a bit strange. So people were asking her to do it, and she was ignoring them. And I think because Pedro, people in the background, I think this is important. I'm sorry, guys, if you're not going to like this, talking very briefly, but Pedro came from Cuba, from like a family of nothing. They fled to America when they're younger. So he's built his career up, but he advocates sort of LGBTQ plus rights, trans rights, all rights. Pedro is an absolute. I mean, we loved him in Game of Thrones, but everything he's in, he just seems like his press interviews, everything. He's just a really cool guy, and he always seems morally in the right. And this Gina stuff was a bit weird, because she just started tweeting, like attacking people, being all weird. She started first off was like liking really weird tweets, like who are all these weirdos tweeting you, all this kind of stuff. And again, it was a bit like, oh, this is a bit weird. I think this is a bit risky because we'll get into the social media side of your franchise, but then it reached boiling point when she changed her bio to Bit Bop Bip or something like that, and everyone was like, what's wrong with her? Like, she's lost the plot. And then someone tweeted, why'd you do it? She goes, well, I rang Pedro last night. I had a discussion with him. He explained the concept of pronouns, so I've made this my bio. And that's the moment where most of the Star Wars fan base turned on her, because transphobic stuff aside, you can't bring your castmate into a Twitter argument, who is also in the public domain, also the lead of that. It's unfair to bring Pedro into it. Online social media stupidity, everyone gets it. Everyone's done it at least once in their life, but it's like, did you need to do that? What's the point? You're just trying to rile people up. And obviously what's happening during all of these few weeks surrounding this, coronavirus isn't real. The numbers are lies. They want to lock us up all year round. We're nothing. The world's taking over. Then it's like, okay, Gina's lost the plot. You know, is Disney going to say anything? Obviously they didn't, and it was all very hush-hush, and everyone knew she's a Trump supporter. And like I said, not to get politics into it, you know, it's fine to support whoever you want to support, no matter how wrong you are morally. It's your political opinion. And she basically decided to take upon the reign of the election's rigged, this isn't real, we've been cheated of, and all this stuff. And it's kind of like she's completely lost the plot on socials. She knows she's in the shit. Not one cast member's going to comment on it. Not one director's commented on it. Obviously, I didn't see the second trailer. As far as I'm aware, they're not cancelling her out of anything. Disney's just been quiet, as they probably have to be. And then it reached again a boiling point when she went to the social network called Parler, which isn't, unfortunately, Pirates of the Caribbean reference. It's a website for Trump supporters who support QA Anonymous, all that weird stuff like Trump secretly hunting pedos. And basically, it's just a Twitter for people that got banned off Twitter for like wrong radical opinions. So Gina is just a very nasty sting in the mouth, mini bit over. So if you're not aware of the background, and this has been what's interesting, so I'll speak to you a lot about this sort of off air, that I don't know how I'm going to feel when she comes back, because I loved the character, but now I really detest the actress, and I'm happy to say that I'm live, and I can normally differentiate between the actor and the actress. You know, Kevin Spacey is the one we speak about. I think the difference is she's not a pedo. Big difference, actually. But we don't really get these big moments that happen to an ongoing franchise, let alone be the biggest franchise. We had Boyega rightfully standing up for himself. Episode 9 was done. Episode 9 was finished. His contract was over. He was done. He could do whatever he wanted to do, speak out about Disney, and he rightfully has done. And, you know, Daisy's played it very safe. Adams obviously doesn't do press interview anyway. Oscar's been very vocal. It's very interesting. And the Gina crisis was weird because Star Wars hasn't been TV. We're in this unknown where the season's airing. Is she going to be back in season 3? We don't know, but we knew she was coming in this. And yeah, I mean, I've talked too long, and this isn't about the episode, but I'm very torn because she had a couple of moments in this where I was like, you know, this is great, I like this character, and then I'm there like, I just can't advocate the actress, and it's that, can you see past that person? And right now, it's not her opinions, it's not her beliefs, it's more the attitude of it, taking the piss online, and obviously taking the piss, bringing Pedro into it, sort of dismissing stuff, and also just a bit of common sense. If you've got 500,000 followers, you shouldn't be tweeting coronavirus isn't real. I know people are allowed their opinions, people can speak their mind and stuff, but it comes down to that you have maybe this many followers because you're representing now this franchise, and it becomes that big thing where what could be the aftermath. Now, we don't know. Disney haven't commented. Favreau has not commented. Filoni hasn't commented. We know nothing. But Star Wars, to do their on Black Lives Matter, when that was becoming the big thing, Star Wars like, we condone all forms of like hatred. And then they've got her tweets now about like enslaving people and how everyone's terrorists and stuff. And she's basically lost the plot. And yeah, that's kind of ruined her character for me, politely put. I've just lost all. There was a really good scene at the end, and I was there like, I just don't give a shit. I want to see you get absolutely massacred by Moff Gideon this season. And you know what? That is my wild prediction. I think the only reason she's lost the plot on socials is because she's not coming back to the show. I don't think anyone that would be contracted to a TV show, arguably the biggest in the world right now, is going to go that bad on social media, no matter what your beliefs are, what your anything is. If you've got a contract, you ain't going to say anything. And I think her character's not going to make it season 3 on the point of it's already been filmed. It happened 10 months ago. So that's that. I'm going to let you have your say very quickly. And we're going to bring up Carl. Do you think it's the last we've seen of this season? No, I think, as Chris said earlier, we've not seen the trailers. to me, there is no way we're not getting those two come back. If they've pissed off Moff Gideon, if there's a big plan, which we'll get into later, I don't see. I think they're definitely coming back, but we don't know to what capacity. I could see the final episodes being a double header again. Certainly have the main ones back. But now I'm going to hand over to you to get a drink.
Okay.
I know. I'm so sorry. It's really tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah, no. So I completely agree with that, but I can separate with Amber Heard, different kettle of fish completely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
absolutely not. So I get not being able to separate that. I know some people even have that with Tom Cruise. A lot of people don't like Tom Cruise for some reason, like the whole science, whatever. They can't differentiate, and that's absolutely fine if you can't do that. Like I get that. But I don't have that problem with her now. It's a weird topic. It's a weird debate, but I think it's definitely one worth having. Not going to take away from her political beliefs. She's a Republican, wants to, support Trump, whatever. That's totally fine. It's a free country, or at least it should be. And, opinions, no matter what, coronavirus is a fake, tinfoil hat, all of that stuff. Absolutely entitled to your opinion. And I think that's what makes a conducive society. And I think that it's good to have that, and it's good to have that discourse. So I don't think she should be fired because she has differing beliefs. Whatever she's put on Twitter, that's kind of it. And J.K. Rowling's paying the price for that now as well, because she did that too. When she's kicking off with fellow cast members, and it's causing a stir, and maybe certain cast members don't want to work with her because of things she said, because of her snarky attitude, that's when it's a problem. And that's when you won't be able to film things now. I mean, Pedro Pascal does play the Mandalorian, but I know that is it two other people who also play the role? So if he didn't want to be on set with her, it's not really a problem, because you could get anyone in that costume and then just ADR the dialogue in afterwards. Like, you could work around it. But that would mess around with production, and Disney don't like that. They like to, keep a smooth ship as much as they can, or at least fake it till they make it like they can. So that's where the problem's going to underlie. Now, it'd probably be weird for them going into season 3 if she is still alive. Now, I think all of this kicked off after they'd already wrapped on season 2, as far as I'm aware. So whatever their grand plan is with the character of Kara for this season, that's set in stone. That's done. That's in the can. So if she does die at the end of this series, then hey, no muss, no fuss. You haven't got to worry about it for season 3. If they do keep her alive at the end, then that might be a bit more awkward going into season 3 if they're looking to run that smooth ship into season 3. There is a moment, which is probably, it's at the very end of the episode, but I may as well talk about it now, where she gets given a Rebel Alliance thing. It's like, hey, if you want to come back, you know where to find us, give us a call. And it does look like the character's having some conflict there. Like, she's having, she likes being away from it, but maybe she will get back into the fight. And as soon as I saw that, I thought that's their exit strategy. If they want to go with that, they can say that she reconsidered and joined it. Now, at this moment in time, she doesn't want any part of it, and she's conflicted. So they need to get her to that point, because that would be really weird at the start of season 3 just to say, oh, she decided to go with them. That would feel a bit of a cop-out. But there is something there. There's something there where they could do it. So I personally like seeing her back, because, again, I did like her character as well. She doesn't really have much acting range. I will give her that. But her type of character, where she is kind of this military meathead, big Gatling gun, burly, she's going to get stuck into the fight. That kind of weirdly works for a character, so I don't really have a problem with that. I like seeing her. She's part of the group. But yeah, it's going to be weird going into it. I think we needed to address that, because this is the first time that we've seen a character be reintroduced. But shall we talk about Carl Weathers being introduced? Because
yes.
Another Carl says, I noticed the Predator handshake with himself and the Mando. I actually think that was in the trailer. It's the ultimate, bro, manly handshake. He says, you grab the forearms rather than the hand. It was great seeing him back, and also the way that Carl Weathers was interacting with Baby Yoda as well was one of the highlights of this episode for me. He was absolutely playing granddad to this thing, speaking like baby, oh, did he treat you? Oh, you're so cute. And that's going to be me on Christmas Day when I get my Baby Yoda this year that says 25 phrases now on Zavvi and Amazon. It was great. It was just nice to see him reacting to that, and we get that nice bit at the beginning as well with the school, and he sits Baby Yoda down, and we've got this protocol droid teaching the class. We'll get into it later when we talk about Gideon, but you've got a fun prediction as to what's going to happen to that entire village and that school. Maybe we'll be retreading some Revenge of the Sith territory with that one. It was just great seeing Carl Weathers in this one. He had a great time. I don't think he overshadowed everyone, though. That was one of my concerns. I thought he was going to make himself front and center. He was definitely more prominent, but I thought it was equally distributed between all of them. It felt more of an ensemble. I will say that Mando felt like he took a step back again this episode. He didn't seem quite as focal as the other ones.
It's it's the thing with Carl. I think when you look at season 1, when we had this first couple of episodes, every time he was in scene, he was great. He was, hey, look at this. This is the guy that got the bounce. None of you could. Look at the armor he's wearing because none of you could do it. And every scene he was in was great. He got to the final and he had that character trait development where he was going to kill them, and then he double crossed and kept them alive. You got these great individual moments of him drinking at the bar when they think they're going to die. Do the magic hand trick. That's maybe my favorite comedy line of the Mandalorian so far. But actually, it's more the comedy response, isn't it? But I was kind of in the same. I thought we're going to get the Carl Weathers episode, and I think it was character progression that he does rule this town now. Like he would act like that. One of my favorite things, which I don't know if people have spotted, when there is a statue of IG-11. I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if I messaged you. In the background, so there's a scene where you've got Gina Carano, Carl Weathers talking. I think it's just before the school. Then there's a big gap. Then it's Mando. But if you look in that, oh, there we go. Carl's got it. If you look in the background, there's an IG-11 holding up in the air, and I just thought that was incredible.
I missed that.
I'm so excited to go back and see that bit again. I quite is that IG-11? And then like the camera cut back. I was like, oh my god, it is. And there's references, and then there is a background statue of Droid from 2 episodes of TV. Phenomenal. But I thought Carl Weathers was great. As I said, Mando did take a step back. It was sad because I kind of saw it as a criticism season 1 that it's like a video game on their quest, like an RPG. And I don't know why I thought of it as criticism at the time because I'm actually loving it now. I think the show is attributed so well to it. It's like, oh, look, I'm going to an area. Do this task for us, and then you can proceed. But I'm kind of enjoying the tasks he has to do to proceed. Like the worst thing is playing a game and you get an awful side mission that you've got to do because you have to do it. We get it once or twice in The Mandalorian, but most of the time we've had like really good fun. I mean, when the credits came saying the siege, that's when you knew, okay, this is going to be potentially a really good episode. You're not going to allow it to be called the siege if you're not doing something interesting with it. I think that was my kind of concept of that. So he was great. Mithril, the blue guy coming back, surprised. I didn't like that in season 1.
Is he actually called Mithril?
I think he's called Mithril. Someone
That's the name of the No, Lord of the Rings, the silver shiny shirt that Frodo gets given.
Is it?
No blade can pierce it. Mithril. Yeah, that's mental. I did kind of look in the episode, and I thought, did he just say Mithril? I was like, no, it can't be. It can't be.
But we'll double check that. I'm convinced it is, but I could be wrong.
I'm just going to type in fish guy Mandalorian.
Mythrol, Mithril, Wikipedia.
There we go. Okay.
Mithril. We were close. Okay. But even he was okay this time. Like it worried me in season 1 because it was the opening 10 minutes of the entire TV series, and I was like, "Oh, is this the president?" Obviously, it wasn't, but he had a place for this. He caught him. He's basically using him to work for free labor. It felt like something his character do. So I loved Carl Weathers, and the 3 of them. Like I said, even though I'm not a massive fan of hers, and struggled to get to the character. It's the last time I'm going to talk about it, but the 3 of them made a great trio in season 1. You had IG-11 with them at the end. We had Baby Yoda, and obviously, again, he took a supporting role of the school scene, which is incredible. I know we've had younglings, but sort of primary school banter, well, not even banter, is it? Like, of course, there would be that kid that says no. I'm actually going to bring comments from Carl, sorry. There seems to be a thing, Baby Yoda eating nearly every episode. I thought it was great again today. It was just fun. It's going to happen, and even going back to the opening scene, actually, a baby Yoda doing the wires, that is just comedy gold. You know exactly it's going to go wrong. He doesn't understand it, and it just works because it's funny, it's cute, it's Baby Yoda doing something wrong, and we just want more of him, and we're going to keep getting more of him, and it's the way the world's going. Baby Yoda is like the savior of 2020. There's no coincidence since the Mandalorian has returned. There's been a vaccine announced. Donald Trump's gone. Lots of things are happening. It's all because the series has come back, and we can blame Baby Yoda. But that being said, I don't know if it's worth getting into the main crux of it, the actual siege itself.
I was just going to mention Baby Yoda really quickly in that he's great, he's cute. This is the first time that we see him use the Force this series, and it's to get like a pack of Mentos or something, or like, I don't even know what they were. They look like cream cakes or something, whatever he was eating. I would like to see more of Baby Yoda plot-wise. It definitely seems like in season 2 they're doubling down on the whole cutesy vibe from him, which is great, which is fine, but it felt like he was more plot-related and central in series 1 with those cute bits thrown in. This time it seems like, oh, we need a scene of cute Baby Yoda doing something cute and eating something, which is funny and great. But I hope as it goes on, maybe next episode where we get more about the Jedi and maybe where Baby Yoda's going to go, where he belongs, then we'll start getting into that side of things more. It's just a side note in that Baby Yoda has felt a little bit sidelined this series, I think, maybe.
Yeah, because we know ultimately last season was about him. It was, oh my God, we didn't know he was a thing. And I think that's been another really big thing. Now, we've had a year of him. He's been the global phenomenon that he is. It's a very different touch, but we know ultimately where his character, we don't know where he's going, but we know to a point what the goal is with him. And next week, I think it's going to be that week where we have the shift momentum. We might be overhyping for episode 5. Who knows? It could be episode 6, but Filoni's written and directed this.
Could you imagine if it's like a filler episode on Canto Bite or something next week? It's just like, oh, that was a misfire there.
Sideline but vital. His blood anyway. I think that's actually a really good segue. Should we talk the siege? Not the siege of Mandalore, because we had that earlier this year and that was excellent. So they've got to go to an Imperial base, and basically they're just going to turn on the lava and eradicate it. So it's the last sign of the Empire gone. And immediately, Empire base, as you said earlier, speeder bikes, things we've seen in the trailers. Could Moff Gideon be there? Why are they there? And I was suddenly on the edge of my seat very quick. It was a bit slow, but I said something interesting is going to have to happen today. And I had a blast with it. I don't know why. It just felt like those characters, maybe it's that familiar territory of they're not on an Imperial Star Destroyer, but it's that environment where they are when they're running around killing people, seeing them do these cool things. That's all fine. It was like, yeah, this is fine. This is fun. This is good. And then I guess we have to get to the big moment, which is potentially the connection to the Rise of Skywalker, which I won't knock for a change tonight. We get a shot of well, this is I'm going to bring Dave later. So we just get this standstill. We get this hologram of the Doctor from season 1, who we liked at the time. It's like, if they want to kill it, I'm not going to kill it. I'm going to take a sample. And we ultimately get the narrative, the villain's narrative. They need Baby Yodas to use to create. Officially, we don't know if it's clones or if it's soldiers, but they need them to create life out of Bacta tanks. And one of them looks an awful lot like a certain Supreme Leader Snoke. And that was the moment to me. You mentioned the music kicked in. I've listened to the song. The soundtrack's been released today. That is the potential game changer. Jon Favreau said over a year ago, it's not going to be the main films, but it's going to have seeds of the First Order. That was the words he described. And obviously we kind of got that with Gideon that he's doing.
Oh, have we lost George? We may have lost George. He might be back in a few seconds. This usually happens sometimes.
Sorry, I was going to say, I don't know where it got to. But we now know why they need him.
Planting the seeds for what may come, the First Order.
Yeah, so we know season 1 we had Moff Gideon, and he knew he wanted the baby. He's doing something important. We don't know what that is right now, but he's got the dark saber. This season, they need him because they want to do something with him to create something. That's the official as we stand in the timeline perspective. Now, we know down the line that there are Bacta tanks or failed clones in Exegol in episode 9, which is where the speculation kicks in. However, because that was my immediate pop. I was like, okay, they're creating Palpatine. I think we discussed it last year. That could it be connected to bring back Palpatine? Who knows? But Dave, Life of Brian, did message me this morning when we were chatting, and he did say, we'll get to the final shot later. Could they be wanting to create like a small unit of like force soldiers, super soldiers, whatever you want to say? And I kind of sat there like, oh, that's interesting. I'm certainly more aligned to think it's to do with the Empire, because even as far as last week, we had the "Long Live the Empire" quote. We've got Carl's comment. Great point. The scientists had the Camino cloners last week. Exactly that. Clones are expensive too. You need a lot of money. So we now know, again, why and what they need Baby Yoda for. So that's now progressing the enemy's point of, okay, that's their goal. And now they've literally said they're going to kill him because the samples have failed a little bit. They need him now, the whole thing. And now we also know that Mando knows Gideon's alive, which almost is like also interesting. Yeah, I literally thought a second, it was like, Gideon's alive. And it's like Brian Blessed like just comes in as like Boss Nass.
Yes.
The crossover we never thought we'd get. But I'm going to hand it over to you because as far as that went, I did not expect that today. But for the hell of it, they needed something like that today because it's putting things in place. We'll get to Gideon later, but they're now starting to plant the seeds, not for the First Order, of where this series is heading. And I'm very intrigued now. Now there are stakes. I think that's probably a better word to say.
Yeah, a lot of speculation from this one scene, really, and then we'll touch on Elizabeth's comment there. I was trying to make out those black suits at the end. I really don't know where this could be going. I've got ideas, and then as we mentioned, Life of Brian's mentioned about the force-sensitive troopers, maybe, or like a troop that you can send out, like a task force, essentially, with force abilities, which would be amazing. And they're in these huge like mech suits, maybe. The soundtrack is very interesting, though, because although, I mean, it does sound like two key scenes. First being in Revenge of the Sith in the Opera House scene, where Palpatine's talking about the legend of Darth Plagueis the Wise, the tragedy, of Darth Plagueis the Wise, and you have that low kind of like, ooh, it's like this really creepy, eerie background noise, which works beautifully for it. We then hear a song in Force Awakens at the time, which made everyone think, oh, maybe this could be Plagueis because they're using that audio signifier of the music, and it's, it kicks in again when every time I think that we see Snoke in that first one. And then we get it again now. Now, with the soundtrack, with Ludwig, he's never used any of the iconic Star Wars sounds. We talk about the Baby Yoda moment from season 1 with the Mudhorn. That would be the perfect segue to get the Force theme. We don't get it. He made the soundtrack his own. So it's very interesting that he'd use a song or craft a song that almost sounds identical to what's come before in previous Star Wars movies in this scene here. Which immediately makes you think of, now this could be a red herring. It could be intentional to make you think it's going to lead into something like that. And they could throw you for a loop, and it could be something like Force-sensitive soldiers. And I don't know what I'd prefer, because I know it's set 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and as much as I wish the sequels weren't a thing, if they're going to keep them canon, it is going to get to a point where you are going to have to start setting some of that stuff up, because it is that 30-year gap. And how soon did the First Order come into being after the events of Return of the Jedi? I don't want it to tie him to Palpatine. We've made our thoughts on Palpatine's return in Episode 9 very clear and very vocal, and I want Mandalorian to be as much of its own thing as possible and stay true to that. I even kind of don't want it to be Snoke, I kind of don't want it to be. I want it to be just forget the sequels. Like, they can be their own thing in their own sort of world. Keep this to what it is. So out of all three possibilities, I'd prefer the Force-sensitive soldiers, because that would be something that we haven't seen before, and it keeps it away from all of that stuff. What I was thinking about was Baby Yoda, and I was trying to think about this back to season 1, in that his age being 50 years old. And we were like doing some maths, and we were trying to work our way back. And I think it puts it to around the same time that Anakin was born. I think so. I've seen theories out there. Could it be some kind of dyad in the Force that we get with Episode 8 and 9, where you had these two chosen ones, these two miracle space Jesuses? You had Anakin Skywalker and you had Baby Yoda born at the same time. Is Baby Yoda going to bring balance to the Force? I don't know. There's many theories out there. I do think it's very interesting. I do think the soundtrack choice is very telling for that scene. And you're right, just seeing things in back to tanks like that. I was trying to make out a face. I was like, does that look like Ian McDermott, or does that look like CGI Andy Serkis? And I couldn't tell. But maybe we'll get a casting announcement for season 3, and we'll get Ian McDermott back, because he made Snoke. So if it is a jar full of Snokes, maybe we'll have scenes set on Exegol. We'll have Ian McDermott, and he's like, go to Navarro and extract the DNA from Baby Yoda and make me some Snokes. I don't know. It's completely wide open, but I think it's very interesting, and I think this is what the season needed at this point. Speculation, thinking ahead. This is what it's all about, and especially the week gaps as well between episodes, because you can mull it over and you can try and predict where it's all going to go.
Yeah, and this goes back to me, that point of, it being this big reveal, because it's not a humongous reveal. It's less than a minute, but you wouldn't expect that in the Carl Weathers episode. We're expecting big things from the Favreau one, expecting big things from Filoni's one, and not to say it's unfair on anyone else that's lined up for this, but it's that they're not the traditional directors. The Rob Rodriguez one I'm expecting a lot, because he's made many great films, some great, some crazy films, but you didn't expect that again from Carl Weathers. So to get the revelations was cool. I'm with you on this. It's tricky. It's interesting territory, because there is so much I want to see, because I have my opinions on 9. However, I'm going to bring up Carl's comment once more. Do you think we're seeing the beginning of the creation of the First Order? I think so. I'm not going to do the in the books debacle, but very much the Battle of Jakku happens, and whatever leaders were left disappeared into, there's that 2-word term they use for in Star Wars, unknown regions. It's the unofficial, we've written them out, and they'll come back when they need to. So as far as we're aware, Admiral Sloane went into unknown regions, and at some point or another, Hook Sr. became head of the First Order, then Hooks Jr., and then the First Order emerged with a Supreme Leader Smoke. There is as we said, 22-year window. Is it 5 years after episode 6? This one, 5 years. So there's a 25-year window, and I'm very intrigued, because the thing that's getting me now, and we'll get to Gideon in a bit, is that every time we get not even that theme, but that Empire side of it, I'm the last person that would have wanted to say, hey, we're going to do this new Star Wars show set after episode 6, but the Empire is going to be the villains. And I'd have been like, oh, really? I'm completely sold, because we're seeing new things with it. We're seeing a more interesting take that, they're leftover soldiers and stuff, but there's something going on. And I loved that in this episode, where even going to that final scene, the pilot says, something is happening. We keep having to come to the sector, but no one's believing us. And that's something that I really liked heading forwards with this one, is because there is something happening, and we don't need to know the answer, because that answer is above the pay grade of the Mandalorian. That answer is the First Order. That answer is the films. This is this smaller scale thing. So I'm really intrigued to see where it's going to go. And I think the key word is trust now. I trust Filoni and Favreau to push this forwards. Mm-hmm. We've discussed to death the 7, 8, 9. Should J2 do all 3? Should Ryan do 8 and 9? That's been discussed to death. But when we know we've got these two creatives, Filoni, the Star Wars guy, Favreau, the showrunner, the film experience guy, with the Lucasfilm apprentice at his side, that is, to me, a power dynamic that I have all the trust in the world for. Filoni's record, to me, speaks for itself on Clone Wars and Rebels. They have no right being as adult as they were at times. Granted, they are still made for kids. They're not perfect, but where his credit lies within the Star Wars community, in the universe, everything Lucas said about him, I think the key thing for me is that I trust the two people taking the show forwards. So that's what's kind of got me going more, is that I trust them, and there's something that's going to happen. And even jumping to that final scene, we had a couple of people discuss it. Maybe it's a good time to. We had an open ending of all these incredible suits in a red room that had seals and smoke. And I thought, wow, that guy's got a lot of repeat armor. Like, we had Grievous's lair when he's got like 50 bodies of himself. But, even Moff Gideon has one of them rich people, there's new clothes every day. Or he's planning something big. And it's hard to explain why. We don't know. Someone's commented, I thought a Vader helmet. It looked very like that. It looked even like Gideon's armor. I think I messaged you. I was like, could it be an army of Inquisitors? Could Moff Gideon be an Inquisitor? Who knows? But that speculation is, again, that's what makes it so fun about the weekly things. But what was revealed tonight is not going to be answered next week. I think this could be an episode 7/8 thing. I think by the end of this series, in the next 4 weeks, we are going to know exactly not what's happening, but I think we're going to have a Gideon speech where we're all informed of a lot of things that he wants to do. So I'm really looking forward to it. But it's leaving that episodic, it feels like a Saturday morning cartoon. And I mean that as a compliment, that it can change up every week and it can be very different. But by having less Gideon, granted, we criticized it certainly last season for not introducing him, because he's been in 4 episodes, two of them tail end last time.
Yeah.
Right. A hologram last time, a scene this time. I would much rather have him sporadically used to build him up. It's like wrestling. You get a new wrestler coming, you just slowly build them up, because when they finally get that entrance, that is when stuff's going to happen. And I'd much rather have that than have him at the end of every episode. Like, I'll get you again, Mandalorian. That would just be so ridiculous. He'd not be taken seriously. But
that's when you get from like the Clone Wars, where it is that cartoon kind of thing, and it lessens the character.
And the final bit on that is that I know I'm jumping to the end. We'll go back to things beforehand, but they're tracking the ship. We know Mando is going to Ahsoka. We know that Gideon is tracking Mandalorian because he wants the child.
Mm-hmm.
And he says this time we'll be ready. So as far as we can discuss the ending later, but as far as I'm aware, his plot point is kicking in, and we are very close to some, I think, incredible Darksaber scenes, because you've heard this off me for a year now. All I want is live action Darksaber stuff, and I'll get to what I think is going to happen to that city, unless we want to discuss that now and go back to the siege bit after. I know I've spoken quite a lot.
Yeah, no, we can. Yeah, if you want to pitch it, we can go into that. Yeah.
So what I loved with this episode is that the guy that's the spy that informs them, the moment he's shown, I thought he'd be a bounty hunter. He's obviously reporting to them. His whole plan has been that Mando's going to have to return to this planet at some point. And when he does, we'll put a tracking in and we'll be able to get him. And this is what's left it really good for me, because I just started thinking, saying, why would the Empire just leave and not come back and decimate it when he wants to? Like, why would they leave it untouched? Why would they let, around the corner from their factory, let Greef Karga have a really cool little city by himself that's thriving? It's got markets. It's got a school. It's been turned upside down. How would they allow that to happen? And that's because this is exactly the plan for me. Gideon's entire plan is to get the Mandalorian back. If he could massacre them any day of the week, and I think that's going to come. And sorry, it is that moment. Do you see where I'm trying to come at? That he's let them live because he wants them to, because they're going to basically bring Mando to him. And now we're in a position where now he's got what he wants. That city could be expendable. We know he's not there. That factory is destroyed, but I think some things are going to kick off soon, and I think that city is going to get massacred.
I would like to see a different ending action beat than another standoff on Navarro with Gideon. I think that might be a bit too much of a retread. I'd like to see some new territory with that. I do question why the Imperials would build a base on a secret volcano layer, and it doesn't seem like a safe thing. I know they had that reactor thing that like keeps it shut down, but if that goes offline, if anything happens, that whole place is erupting, and that's exactly what happens. But
they'll be safe on a volcanic planet. We know that,
right? That's threw me off now. But yeah, no, I do think that we need to see Gideon do something properly villainous. I think he might work as like a one-on-one kind of fighter. He deploys the garrison, and then he goes into fight himself. So I actually think we'll see those suits next time. I was thinking, like, are they going to wait for the blood to like power up these suits or something? But when he's talking about we're tracking Ahsoka and he says we'll be ready for them, and it pulls back to show all of these, I thought they were Death Troopers. When it first I thought it was like, I was like, oh, I love me some Death Troopers with like the whole like distorted voice thing, which apparently they changed in Rebels, which I'm not too keen on. But then when it pulled back, I was like, oh no, these are big. These are like Ironmonger from the first Iron Man movie. This is going to be mental. So I reckon maybe he's just made these things. Maybe they're mech suits. Maybe troopers are going to get inside them. It's going to be like Avatar, where they have to like pilot those big mech things, Rock'em Sock'em Robot kind of thing. I think he's just sort of like made all of these things to take down Ahsoka because he knows what he's going up against, maybe. Because clearly, like, he's tracking. Is he specifically tracking Mando, or is he tracking Mando because he knows where he's heading to?
No, he's just tracking Mando so he can get the child.
Right. Okay.
But so I think because he did probably didn't expect to lose. I mean, we say he lost last time. He's still alive, but he obviously did not expect that to have happened last time for them to get away, for Baby Yoda to be safe and on that ship flown away. So he's tracking them. Now, the Ahsoka stuff's interesting because obviously we've had Rebels. We don't know who knows she's alive. I think that's the key thing. It's left, they didn't expand it too much. The characters that knew she's alive basically died, i.e. Vader. So I don't know if he's even heard of her. And we kind of spoke about this, didn't we? That the last thing you want, and I'll echo this, is to have Ahsoka versus Gideon, because there's only one winner and it's not enough Gideon. So I think they're going to avoid that. I don't think Ahsoka's going to be this big recurring character in Mando. I think it's going to be one episode done. We had her come to this live action world. Now she can go back to animated. It's more of that, look how big this character became. She made its live action. So However, that being said, we've got a comment from Dave as well. He will be over the moon to find a real Jedi. I mean, I keep saying the word Darksaber. I even bought the Adidas Darksaber shoes. If we get a chance of a Darksaber versus lightsaber, I would be incredibly excited.
I think
I don't think it's going to be her. I don't know why. I don't want, if he fights her, I don't want him to win. I don't want her to die via him either. They don't know each other. It wouldn't work for either. So,
well, we know that
it's very interesting.
By the time of Rise of Skywalker, because we hear her voice, she's one of the Jedi voices at the end. So we know that she's dead by that point. I know that it's 30 years. So that's the question. Would they, if she's only going to be in one episode, will they want to give her a send-off, like an official send-off in live action, and get it done? I think Ahsoka, especially after season 7 of the Clone Wars, her reintroduction in Rebels and everything, and her being part of this, I think they've got big plans for Ahsoka. She seems to be the cash cow at the moment. She's the character that everyone loves, so I think they're going to keep pushing that character. I haven't seen Rebels, but I know that it ends on a cliffhanger. I don't know if all of that stuff would have been wrapped up before the events of Mandalorian, or if that's stuff that comes after Mandalorian, or if there's still more story to tell there. I'm not quite sure, but here's the thing: if it does get to a one-on-one fight, one of them's got to go, unless it's going to be it's going to be like an ending of Episode 7 kind of scenario with Kylo Ren and Rey, where something happens that separates them and they both will clash again. I think if that happens, though, I think that will take the limelight away from Mando. I liked Mando's standoff with Gideon at the end of season 1. I thought that whole TIE fighter sequence I've talked about is one of my favorite sequences in Star Wars. And yeah, if we get Ahsoka, and this is going to be my big worry for next week, we keep talking about it, how much screen time is Ahsoka going to get? If it's done through the eyes of Mando and we're learning things with Mando, vital information to the saga as a whole and where the child's going to go, that's fine. But if the focus shifts to specifically her because she's a fan favorite, it's going to be that alienation, and I think it's going to take the edge away from what I think Mandalorian should be. And even the ending of this, cutting to Gideon, that's like a thing that hasn't been done before for the most part. Thinking back to season 1, as far as I can remember, apart from the flashback with IG-11, but it was being explained to Mando, we followed Mando every single scene. Like, he was almost the narrator. Like, we followed him every step of the way, and I don't think we really cut to any other character where Mando wasn't present. This kind of changed it on its head a little bit with this episode, I think.
Just the Darksaber scene at the end of season 1.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I can't remember if that was the final scene or the penultimate scene. But it's that we're teasing the big bad villain, and my gosh, we have a beautiful soundtrack. I'm ready. I don't know if I actually mentioned this to you. I'm ready to put the Moff Gideon Empire theme in my top 3 villain themes in Star Wars now.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if I mean, let's be honest, there's not many. There's the Imperial March, there's the Kylo Ren theme. And then to me, it's this. I don't really think Palpatine has his own theme, but
he does.
Maybe.
Palpatine has his theme. That counts. I don't know. You've got. Are we talking like Trade Federation as well? Are we talking Jewel of the Fate?
Well, this is the thing, but I wouldn't say that's an outright villain theme for like this one character. Actually, yeah, ignore me. It's 4th. Sorry.
I didn't be
this kind of thing.
It'd be in my top 10. I don't know if it'd be in my top 3. But
it's just I said every week, every time it pops up, like, we know who's about to come on screen, and it's the Ludwig Göransson stuff. And I'm going to say this now because we've spoke a lot about Tenet. If you're new to us, we adore Nolan. We had a great Christmas Nolan month, and we love that Tenet soundtrack. And Ludwig, to me, is now in my. I've always had a top 3 composers. It's always been Zimmer, Williams, and Giacchino. I've this year unofficially expanded it to a top 4, and the 4th is Ludwig Göransson with the others. And we had the combination of combinations today during a siege. We basically had the Tenet theme from the opening scene, and it sounded like The Mandalorian, and it sounded like Tenet, and my brain was just going like, "This is incredible! I want more." And I wasn't even watching; I was just like listening at that point. I was like, "Is this the Tenet theme, or is this The Mandalorian?" I didn't know, but either way, it accommodated them doing a siege. Maybe not as good a siege as the Opera Siege and the start of Tenet. We'll discuss that another time. But his music's really starting to take. I mean, season 1 I adored. I think. Again, a wonderful composer, and I love that he's made Star Wars his own. But we've had this season, we've had the great Mandalorians theme from last week when they were all on screen together. We've now had this intriguing Empire theme of the back to tank. Sorry, or what's going to happen with that? But to get the siege stuff, soundtrack full credit. Can't wait to listen to it properly because again, they finally released it, but it's volume 1, the first 4 episodes. So
I'm sure they'll
Yeah,
release a very nice final when it all comes out, when it's all said and done. If we do get a fight with Gideon, though, if they integrate that theme into like a battle theme, but looking forward to hearing that, definitely. I pretty much said everything I can on the episode. There's a few other little bits I'll just throw out there and sort of like a closing thing. The fish dude, when he was introduced, I was really worried. I hated the character in the first series, and I was really worried. He was kind of downplayed, and I didn't mind him this episode. Didn't really need him. He's kind of part of this Suicide Squad agreement where he's having to like shave years of service off his sentence. He was fine. I guess it needed some kind of comic relief in there. The action stuff, beautifully filmed, fantastic CGI. It was almost like a car chase. It was like a car chase in Star Wars, which I was going to say we've never had before. I guess we kind of had one at the beginning of Solo in some kind of weird way. This was much better. It was a little bit weird that TIE fighters couldn't keep up with like a land vehicle, but maybe they were pulling back so they could get a good shot, but they kept locking on and they never seemed to hit it. It's like Jango Fett from Attack of the Clones, where he's locked onto Obi-Wan, but he's firing at everything around Obi-Wan and not Obi-Wan himself. I guess that's just a Star Wars thing. If I was going to give any criticisms, it's just that maybe the action at the end went on a tad too long. Maybe just a bit more character stuff. Maybe just a little bit more plot could have been eked in there. But as a spectacle, it was fantastic. I keep talking about the budget and what they've been able to achieve this season. It's just continuing that as it goes on. But what I've latched onto most with this episode was the intrigue and possibility of where it could go, not just for next episode, but for maybe even next season and for the Star Wars saga as a whole. And that's really interesting. So that's sort of like my final thoughts on Chapter 12, The Siege. If you want to give your final thoughts as well.
Yeah, I thought it was a solid episode. I wasn't expecting it, not unfairly, I wasn't expecting it to be an episode I liked as much as I did. I was a bit cautious about going back to that planet as we spoke about, but it's echoing what you said. We now have we've got a headway. We know where it's going next, but now we've got that villainous side of it to start adding some stakes. You know, it doesn't need to be I'm going to A, B, C, but now it's like I'm going to A, but I'm being tracked by Z. And something's going to happen. So now it's that week where, like, what's going to happen next week? Is next week going to be that crazy episode? Is something insane going to happen? We don't know. But regardless, I am looking forward to finding out what happens, because these are the best parts about Fridays right now, is being able to watch this first thing, watch it again later on. And I think it's really starting to kick into itself. You mentioned the budgets again. I think this season seems more solid. I know we've only had 4 episodes, but the consistency seems that to be a little bit more tighter than it was in season 1. If you kind of look at the trajectory of the story as like a final piece, it's gone straight through. You know, they left Tatooine, they went to the ice planet, they got to the ice planet, they've gone to the water bit, they've gone from water straight to here. We're on this solid adventure with them, and I'm really intrigued to see that. So fingers crossed for next week being the Ahsoka episode.
Planet, I think, isn't it? Forest Moon or something, I think, next week again with Ahsoka. I think they mentioned in the last episode. Yeah,
they said a forest moon, I think, haven't they? So I'm intrigued, or did they? Sorry, I'm going to get confused.
I don't know. I'm going to that's the Wikipedia. Well, last thing with Carl, I did actually. I remember clocking this. They didn't use the words midichlorians. They used something else. I think that would have been interesting if they'd have used that. Maybe I can understand why they didn't, but yeah, no, I had a blast with this episode. I didn't really know what to think. I won't say that I've enjoyed this season, but I think I've maybe been a bit more negative on it. Not even negative, but just maybe had a bit more gripes with it. But this is sort of like cemented it again, where now I absolutely cannot wait. I think a lot of people are really looking forward to next week, and we do have something really exciting to announce for next week's episode before we do sign off. But comment with your thoughts on Mandalorian, specifically this episode, the season as a whole, and with the bits of information we got in this episode, where you think it's going to go as well. There's a lot of nuggets of information in there where you can really expand it out. So like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We love doing these discussions and getting everyone in the comments as well to join in the discussion too. And as always, really quickly, Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter _Savvy, and TeePublic, link in the description down below for merch. George, over to you with the announcement for next week's Mandalorian episode.
Yes, you said it perfectly. The things we love explaining it, and we've had me and you for the first half of the season, which has been great. We've been having a good fun discussing. So, the second half of the season, we've got a couple of guests coming on that we're really looking forward to. So, next week we have Matt and Sean from Blue Bantha Milk coming on. They're going to be with us live. They are based in Australia. It's going to be 9 a.m, same time here, guys, 10 p.m. GMT. But They're going to be joining us on StreamYard. We're going to have an all-out discussion, episode 5. If you've not seen their channel, if you like Star Wars, check it out. They are both great. They're both Australians as well, so they've got the extra vibe. And also, if you want to see where they're at, as of right now, they've just gone live on the Star Wars Explained on Alex's channel to discuss episode 5. So it's not episode 5, sorry, episode 4. They're discussing 5 with us. So I'm really looking forward to next week, and it's what me and you wanted. We want to bring in some more people. We've not had them on the channel before, so to get them both on for one episode is going to be really cool. It's going to add a new element to it. I've not discussed it properly with them so far in chat, and it's going to be really interesting to get two new heads on. So, and it's episode 5. It's potentially the big one. So, as Chris said, get us on the social medias. We'll obviously put the tweets out to them in the week. We'll give you links to their channel. We're going to have all of that, but we are really looking forward to next week's stream, and we can't wait to see you all on it.
Absolutely. So once again, final thank you to everyone who's joined us today. This has been brilliant, throwing out your theories as well. So much more stuff to come from the channel too. Remember to check in on Tuesday for Rocky 4 review. We'll have a bunch of other stuff as well, but we'll be back next week, next Friday, 10 p.m. for the next Mandalorian review. So until then, take care, guys.